The ship moved slowly through the dark space between stars. Ambassador stood at the window of her small cabin and watched the distant lights. She had traveled for 3 months to reach this place. Station Horizon was the center of the galaxy. Every species that mattered came here to talk, to trade, and to make peace. Was 42 years old. She had gray in her black hair and lines around her eyes. She had spent 20 years learning how to talk to people who did not want to listen. Now she would talk to beings who were not even people at all. Captain knocked on her door and entered without waiting. He was a tall man with a hard face and old scars on his neck and hands. He had fought in 3 wars on Earth before the government sent him here as protector. "We arrive in 6 hours," said. "The council has sent a welcome message. They seem friendly." Turned from the window. "Friendly is good, but I do not trust friendly. Friendly can change." Lieutenant appeared behind. She was young, only 28, with sharp eyes that never stopped moving. She was a tactical officer, trained to see danger before it arrived. "They will meet us first," said, reading from her tablet. "They are the mediators. They have kept peace in the galaxy for 12,000 years." 12,000 years, repeated. "Humanity has only had writing for 6,000. We are children to them." "Children with nuclear weapons," said without smiling. Station Horizon was bigger than any city on Earth. It floated in empty space, a massive ring of metal and light. Ships from 100 worlds moved around it like insects around a lamp. Saw vessels shaped like needles, like eggs, like flowers, like nothing she could name. The docking bay was full of aliens. Had seen pictures and videos, but pictures could not prepare her for the reality. Creatures with too many eyes, creatures with no eyes at all. Creatures that floated, that crawled, that walked on legs of light. And then she saw They were beautiful in a strange way, tall and thin, with skin like colored glass. She could see their 3 hearts beating inside their chests, glowing softly with each pulse. Their faces were almost human but stretched longer, with large dark eyes that held depths of sadness. The lead stepped forward. Its voice was soft and musical. "Welcome, Ambassador. I am Counselor. The Galactic Council greets humanity with open arms and hopeful hearts. May your species find peace among the stars." Bowed, "Thank you, Counselor. Humanity comes in friendship. We seek only to learn and to share." The welcome ceremony lasted 4 hours. Representatives from 30 species came to greet the humans. Some were warm, some were curious, some were clearly afraid, though did not understand why. Then the doors of the great hall opened, and everything changed. The creatures that entered were not like anything had imagined. They were insects, but massive. Each one stood 3 meters tall on 6 armored legs. Their heads were clusters of black eyes above mandibles that clicked with a sound like breaking bones. Behind them came more and more, until 50 of them filled the hall. The other aliens moved away. They began to weep. Actual tears ran down their glass-like faces, and the tears glowed with soft blue light. They whispered, "I read about them. They were supposed to be extinct." "Not extinct," said quietly. His hand moved to the weapon he was not allowed to carry. "Sleeping." The largest moved forward. It was bigger than the others, with gold patterns on its shell. When it spoke, the sound came from a device on its chest, translating its clicks into words. "This council speaks of peace. Peace is weakness. They have returned from the dark. We have slept for 10,000 years, and we have awakened hungry." Counselor stepped forward, tears still flowing. "They are bound by the ancient treaties. You agreed to the laws of the council. You cannot simply take what you want." The gold-marked made a sound that might have been laughter. "Treaties are paper. Hunger is real. The one called Endless Hunger, our overlord, has declared the harvest. 3 species will feed our hives. Their bodies will become our bodies. Their worlds will become our nests." A hush fell over the chamber. Felt cold spread through her chest. "Which 3?" someone asked. The pointed one sharp leg at the "You," The crying ones. Your flesh is rich with chemicals we need. It pointed at a group of blue-skinned beings near the back. Your water bodies will feed our larvae. Then it turned, felt those black eyes focus on her. And you, the new ones, the humans, we have watched your world, you breed quickly. You will make good stock. The chamber erupted in voices. The wept harder, their tears pooling on the floor. Other species backed away, their eyes down, their bodies small. Looked at, his face was stone. She looked at. The young woman's hands were shaking, but her eyes were hard. Thought about Earth. She thought about her mother's house in the cherry trees in spring, the sound of rain on the roof. She thought about schools full of children, markets full of food, parks full of families. She thought about all of it becoming food for insects. Counselor was still speaking, still pleading. The council will discuss this. There must be another way. Perhaps tribute, perhaps territory, perhaps. There is no discussion, the leader said. The harvest begins in one cycle. Prepare your worlds for collection. It turned to leave. The other turned with it. No. The word was quiet, but it carried. The stopped. The chamber went silent. Stepped forward. Her heart was beating so hard she thought it might break her ribs. Her hands were cold and wet with sweat, but her voice was steady. No, she said again. Humanity declines your offer. The leader turned slowly. Its mandibles clicked. Declines. It sounded confused. You do not understand. This is not an offer. This is a fact. You will be harvested. No, said for the third time. We will not. Your ships are small. Your weapons are primitive. Your species is young. You have no allies. You have no chance. Smiled. It was not a happy smile. Maybe, she said, but you will have to come and take us, and we will make you pay for every single body. Every city you burn, we will burn 2 of yours. Every child you take, we will take 100 of your soldiers. You want to eat humanity. You will choke on us. The leader stared at her for a long moment. Interesting, it said finally. The harvest will begin with your world. We will enjoy teaching you what fear means. The left, the doors closed behind them. The chamber remained silent. Every eye was on the humans. Counselor approached. This face was wet with glowing tears. What have you done? Whispered. You have doomed your people that have never been defeated. Never. In 10,000 years, no species has survived their harvest. Looked at, then at. Call Earth, she said. Tell them what happened. Tell them to prepare. For what? Asked. His eyes were cold now. The diplomat was gone. Something older had taken her place. Something that had lived in human bones since the first cave, since the first fire, since the first time a human had picked up a rock and refused to die. For war, said, the kind of war we were born to fight. Counselor wept. The humans did not. The message reached Earth in 2 days. Every government received it at the same time. Every news channel played it within the hour. Every human on the planet and in the colonies heard the same words. Aliens were coming to eat them. For one day there was panic. People screamed in the streets. Shops were looted. Fights broke out over water and food. Some prayed, some hid, some simply sat and waited to die. Then the second day came, and something changed. General stood in the command center in Seoul and watched his screens. He was 60 years old with white hair and a face like cracked leather. He had fought in 3 wars and lost 2 sons to violence. He had nothing left to lose except his species. Report, he said. His aide, a young woman named, read from her screen. All major governments have agreed to the Unity Protocol. The United Nations is dissolved. We are now the Solar Defense Coalition. You have been named Supreme Commander. Closed his eyes. Politicians had argued about unity for 200 years. It took the threat of extinction to make it happen in 2 days. What about production? Shipyards in Korea, Japan, America, Germany, and Brazil are already converting. Civilian factories are switching to military production. We estimate full conversion within 3 weeks. We do not have 3 weeks. No, sir, we do not. Opened his eyes, then we will work faster. On station horizon, Counselor watched the human news feeds with growing confusion. They had expected despair. They had expected surrender, or at least negotiation. That was what every species did when faced with the. Instead saw humans building, working, preparing. The footage showed factories running all day and all night. Workers slept in shifts on the factory floors. Students left schools to learn how to weld ship hulls. Farmers drove their trucks to transport metal and supplies. Old people sewed uniforms. Children packed medical kits. "I do not understand," said to Captain. They stood together on the observation deck, watching Earth's distant sun. His arms were crossed, his face showed nothing. "What do you not understand? Your people should be afraid, they should be running. They have destroyed 100 civilizations. Your ships are small. Your weapons are weak. You have no chance. Turn to look at the. You keep saying that, no chance, no hope, we will die. It is the truth." "Maybe," his voice was flat, "but you forget something. We are humans. We do not know how to give up. It is not in us. We will fight until we win, or we will fight until every single one of us is dead. There is no middle." His tears began to flow. "That is not rational." "No," agreed. "It is not, but it is what we are." Lieutenant spent her days in the strategy room, planning battles that seemed impossible. She had access to all the data the Galactic Council had on the ship sizes, weapon types, battle tactics, numbers. The numbers were very bad. They had 10,000 warships. Humanity had 300. They had weapons that could crack planets. Humanity had nuclear missiles that could barely scratch their armor. They had been fighting wars for 10,000 years. Humanity had been in space for less than 200. Looked at the numbers, and then she threw them away. "We cannot win their war," she told her team, "so we will fight our war instead." She designed new tactics, small ships that moved fast and hit hard, boarding parties that would enter vessels and fight inside where size did not matter, bombs hidden in asteroids, traps laid in empty space, guerrilla warfare on a cosmic scale. "This is insane," one of her officers said. "Yes," agreed. "That is the point. They expect us to be rational. We will not be." The first fleet arrived at the. There were peaceful people who lived in vast oceans. They had no weapons. They had no armies. They sent messages begging for mercy. They did not answer. But someone else did. Commander was 29 years old. She had been a cargo pilot 6 months ago. Now she commanded the Third Fleet of the Solar Defense Coalition, 42 ships, 2,000 sailors, a mission that everyone said was suicide. She had volunteered anyway. "All ships, this is Commander, they think we are weak. They think we are afraid. They think we will run." She paused. Her hands were steady on the controls. Her heart was not. "They are wrong. Today we show them what humans do to those who threaten our friends. Today we fight, not for glory, not for victory, but because it is right. All ships attack." The Third Fleet came out of hiding behind its largest moon. They hit the from behind, fast and hard, like wolves attacking a bear. The first minutes were chaos. Human ships exploded, ships burned. The void filled with fire and debris and the screams of dying sailors. But something unexpected happened. The human ships were small, but they were fast. They dodged weapons that were designed for larger targets. They got close, so close that they could not use their heavy guns. And then the boarding parties launched. Sergeant was first through the airlock. She was a logistics officer who had never fired a gun in combat. Now she carried a plasma cutter and a bag of grenades, and she ran screaming into a wall of warriors. She should have died in the first second, but they were confused. They had never seen enemies come inside their ships. They were used to long-range battles, not close combat. shot 3 of them before they could react. Her team poured in behind her. They fought through corridors that were too narrow for them to use their size advantage. They planted bombs in engine rooms. They cut power lines. They turned the ships into death traps. 4 hours later, Commander stood on the bridge of a captured vessel. Around her, the remains of the battle floated in space. 20 human ships destroyed. 31 ships dead or captured. "Send a message to Earth," said. Her voice was hoarse. Her uniform was covered in blood that was not hers. "Tell them we won." On Station Horizon, Counselor watched the battle recordings. The tears had stopped for the first time in days. "They won," said. "They actually won." Ambassador sat nearby, her eyes fixed on the screen. "It is not winning, it is surviving. There is a difference." "But they have never lost before. Never, in 10,000 years." Looked at her face was tired but hard. "Then they have never fought us before, and now they know what we are. We are not food. We are not prey. We are the species that learned to hunt in the dark. We are the species that tamed fire and split the atom. We are the species that killed our own gods and walked out of our own graves." She stood and walked to the window. In the distance, ships were gathering. More were coming. The real war was just beginning. "You weep for us," said. "Your tears are beautiful and I thank you for them. But we do not need your tears, Counselor. We need your courage. Can you give us that?" Did not answer. But somewhere deep inside, something that had slept for 12,000 years began to stir. They had forgotten what it meant to fight. They had forgotten what it meant to stand against the dark. Perhaps the humans would remind them. 6 months into the war, the galaxy had learned a new word. The word was human, and it meant something that had no translation in most alien languages. It meant stubborn beyond reason. It meant fury that burned without end. It meant creatures who would rather die standing than live on their knees. They had learned this word the hard way. Doctor ran through the corridors of her field hospital on the colony of Nu. Alarms screamed overhead. The walls shook as bombs fell somewhere in the city. She had not slept in 36 hours. She could not remember her last meal. Before the war, she had been a pediatrician. She had treated colds and broken arms and children who ate too much candy. Now she held a saw in her hands and looked at a soldier whose leg was crushed beyond saving. "I need to take it off," she said. "I am sorry." The soldier was young, maybe 20. His name was. He had been a university student studying poetry before the came. "Do it," said through his teeth. "Just do it fast." Cut screamed. Nurses held him down. Outside, another bomb fell and the lights flickered. When it was over, moved to the next patient, and the next, and the next. There was always another one, always more blood, always more screaming. A shadow fell over her. She looked up and saw us standing in the doorway of her hospital. Behind the alien, she could see a medical ship landing in the street. "We have come to help," they said. Its voice was soft and sad. "Our ships carry medicine and equipment. Our healers are skilled. We offer our assistance." Stared at the alien. She thought about the council meeting 6 months ago. She thought about all the species who had watched humanity get threatened with extinction and done nothing. "Why now?" she asked. Her voice was flat. "Why not before? Why not when we asked for help?" The tears began to flow. "The council laws." "Your council laws said you could not fight," interrupted. "They did not say you could not help. You have medicine, you have ships, you have resources. You watched us beg for assistance and you gave us nothing but tears." The lowered its head. "You are right. We were afraid. They have destroyed civilizations for helping their targets. We did not want to become targets ourselves. And now we are ashamed. Your people are dying for a species you never met before this war. You are bleeding for strangers. We cannot watch any longer and do nothing." Was silent for a long moment. Then she pointed at a row of wounded soldiers. "Those men need surgery. That woman needs blood. Those children need someone to hold their hands while they die. If you want to help, help, but do not expect me to thank you." The move to work returned to her patience. Outside, the bombs kept falling. On the front lines, Captain led his unit through the burned forest of a moon called Quiet Garden. The name was a joke now. Nothing was quiet anymore. Nothing was a garden. Their mission was simple: destroy a breeding station. Intelligence said there were growing new warriors designed specifically to kill humans. Faster than normal, smarter, more deadly. Had 32 soldiers. The breeding station had 500 guards. "This is suicide," Lieutenant said. She was his second in command, a woman with a shaved head and burned scars on half her face. "We all know that." "Yes," agreed. "But if we do not stop this, the next generation of will be unstoppable. Millions more will die." "So we die instead." Looked at his soldiers. They were tired, they were scared. They had all lost friends, family, homes, but none of them looked away. "We die so others can live," said. "That is the job, that has always been the job." They attacked at dawn. The battle lasted 7 hours, killed so many that he lost count. He watched die when a warrior cut her in half. He watched young privates sacrifice himself to plant a bomb in the main breeding chamber. He watched his soldiers fall one by one until only 19 were left standing. But the station burned. The larvae died. The new warriors would never be born. Limped back to the extraction point. His armor was cracked. His left arm was broken. He had a piece of shell stuck in his shoulder. When he reached the ship, Counselor was waiting. "You survived," they said. There was wonder in its voice. "Some of us." "Your losses?" 13 dead," said. 13 who will not go home. 13 families who will receive messages tomorrow telling them their loved ones are gone. Tears fell freely. How do you bear it? How do you continue? Sat down heavily. His body ached in places he did not know could ache. His soul felt empty. "We cry," he said. "We break, we bury our friends, and then we stand up. That is what humans do. We get back up." "But why? If the pain is so great, why not stop?" Looked at his eyes were old, so old, though he was only 43. "Because stopping means they win. Because giving up means everyone we lost died for nothing. Because somewhere on Earth there are children who will grow up free because we fought. Because my grandmother told me once that the only shame in falling is staying down." He closed his eyes. "We do not fight because we are brave, Counselor. We fight because we are terrified. We are terrified of what happens if we do not." Sat beside the human. For a long time neither spoke. The tears dried slowly on its glass-like cheeks. "I never understood your species," said finally. "We thought you were young, primitive, fragile. We did not know." "Did not know what?" "That you were forged in fire. That your world made you hard. That you survived not despite your weakness but because of it. You are soft, so you learn to make armor. You are slow, so you learn to make machines. You are mortal, so you learn to make every moment count." Almost smiled. "That is almost poetry." "I am learning," said. "Your species teaches hard lessons." On Earth, General reviewed the reports from every front. The news was mixed. Some victories, many losses. They were endless, it seemed. For every ship destroyed, 2 more appeared. But something else was happening. Other species were beginning to help. They sent medical ships. They provided water and food for human colonies. Small species that had hidden from the began to whisper about resistance. Humanity was not just fighting a war. Humanity was starting a fire. Looked at the map of the galaxy. So many stars, so many worlds, so much darkness. But in that darkness, small lights were appearing. Ships carrying human soldiers. Stations sheltering human refugees. Planets where humans and aliens stood together. The old general allowed himself one moment of hope. Then he returned to work. There was a war to win. 1 year into the war, the Overlord made a decision. The endless hunger had studied the humans carefully. It had watched them fight and die and refused to surrender. It had seen its armies bleed against creatures who should have been easy prey. The Overlord concluded that humanity's strength came from its leaders. Kill the leaders and the species would collapse. It was logical. It was rational. It was how they had broken 100 civilizations before. It was also wrong. The attack came on a Tuesday morning in Seoul. Assassin ships broke through Earth's defenses and struck the command center directly. The explosion killed General, 18 senior officers, and 200 staff members. In one moment, the leadership of the Solar Defense Coalition was gone. They waited for humanity to fall apart. Sargent was eating lunch in the cafeteria of the Pacific Defense Grid when the news came. She was a logistics officer. Her job was moving supplies and counting boxes. She had never commanded anything larger than a warehouse team. The ranking officer on the base was dead. The second in command was dead. The third, fourth, and fifth were all dead. Looked around and realized that she was now in charge. Her hands shook. Her stomach twisted. She wanted to run and hide and pretend this was not happening. Instead, she stood up. "Listen to me," she said. Her voice cracked, then steadied. "The generals are dead. The colonels are dead, but we are not. They are still out there, and they think we will stop fighting because we lost our leaders." She looked at the faces around her. Soldiers, technicians, cooks, cleaners, all of them scared, all of them waiting. "They are wrong," said. "We do not fight because someone tells us to. We fight because our families are behind us. We fight because our homes are on this planet. We fight because we are human, and humans do not stop." She picked up a rifle from a dead soldier's hands. "Anyone who can hold a weapon, follow me. Anyone who cannot, keep the base running. We have a war to win." Across Earth and the colonies, the same thing happened. The expected chaos. They found something else entirely. In Tokyo, a teacher named civilian pilots to evacuate coastal cities before they could bomb them. She had learned to fly cargo ships in her spare time. Now, she led a fleet of fishing boats, transport shuttles, and converted tourist vessels carrying thousands of refugees to safety. In Berlin, an engineer named took control of a weapons factory when the managers fled. He had never led people before. He had spent his life designing engines in a quiet office, but when the workers looked to him for guidance, he gave it. "We have orders to shut down," someone said. "The chain of command is broken." Shook his head. "The chain of command is everyone who is still alive, and we are still alive. Keep the machines running. The soldiers need weapons." In a small town in Argentina, a 16-year-old girl named sat in her bedroom with a computer. She had lost her parents in the first attack. She had lost her brother in the second. She had nothing left except rage and a talent for hacking. She broke into communication frequencies. It took her 3 days without sleep. When she succeeded, she began feeding false information to the enemy. Wrong coordinates, fake fleet movements, phantom bases that did not exist. They sent ships to attack empty space. They wasted weeks chasing ghosts. Never told anyone what she was doing. She did not need credit. She needed revenge. On Station Horizon, Ambassador addressed the Galactic Council. She stood in the same chamber where she had first the 1 year ago. Her wheelchair gleamed under the lights. She had lost her legs to an assassination attempt 3 months earlier. "You have watched us die," she said. "You have wept your beautiful tears and sent your kind messages, and I thank you for that. But now I am asking for more." She activated a display. The image showed a massive weapon platform orbiting a distant star. "This is Project Sunrise. It is the most powerful weapon humanity has ever created. It can destroy a planet. It can end the forever." The chamber erupted in voices: horror, fear, disgust. "This is genocide," one delegate shouted. "You would kill millions, larvae, workers, innocents." His face did not change. "The call what they do to other species harvesting. They do not see genocide. They see agriculture. They have done this to 100 worlds. They will do it to 100 more if we do not stop them." She paused. "I am not asking for your approval. I am not asking for your help. I am asking you to witness what happens next. The decision is already made." Counselor rose from the delegation. The chamber fell silent, rarely spoke in military discussions. "I have lived among the humans for 1 year," said. "I have watched them bury their dead. I have seen mothers send sons to war. I have witnessed fury that burns without consuming those who carry it." The tears flowed, but its voice was steady. "They do not want to destroy they want to survive, and they have earned the right to choose how." Another stood, then another. Then the delegation rose, then smaller species, ones who had hidden from for centuries. One by one they stood. "We cannot fight," said. "Our species have forgotten how, but we can give what we have. Ships, supplies, medicine, sanctuary for your refugees, technology that might help." The delegate who had called looked around at the standing crowd. His voice was weak. "This breaks 12,000 years of tradition." "Yes," said, "it does, and perhaps it is time." The vote was not unanimous, but it was enough. For the first time in galactic history, the Council broke its rule of non-interference. Not to fight, most species were not built for war, but to support those who were. Watched the vote with dry eyes. She had expected to feel triumph. Instead, she felt tired. Captain stood beside her wheelchair. "You did it," he said. "The galaxy is with us." "The galaxy is giving us supplies," corrected. "That is not the same as being with us. When they attack their worlds, they will run. They always run." "Maybe, but today they stood. That is something." Looked at the gathered aliens, species of every shape and color, watching the humans with new eyes. Fear was there, yes, but also something else, something that looked almost like hope. "Maybe you are right," she said. "Maybe standing is enough for now." She turned her wheelchair toward the door. "Come, Captain, we have a war to finish." The final battle began on a cold morning by Earth's calendar. Admiral stood on the bridge of the flagship unyielding and watched the grow larger on her screens. She was 30 years old now. She had been a lieutenant when this war started. She had been young and afraid. She was still afraid, but she was no longer young. Behind her, 1,000 human warships waited. Around them, vessels from 20 other species carried supplies, medical teams, and refugee transports. The galaxy had never seen such a fleet. It would probably never see one again. "Admiral," her communications officer said, "they are hailing us. They want to talk." Almost laughed. They had never wanted to talk before. For 2 years, they had only known how to demand and destroy. "Put them through." The endless hunger appeared on her screen. The Overlord was massive, larger than any she had ever seen. Its golden shell gleamed with ancient patterns. Its voice came through the translator like breaking glass. "You have come to die, little creatures. Your fleet is impressive, but you cannot win. We have survived for 1,000,000 years. We have eaten 1,000 civilizations. You are nothing." Looked at the creature that had killed so many of her people. She felt the fury rise in her chest, hot and clean. "You are right," she said. "We are young, we are small. We have only been in space for a few centuries. By your standards, we are children." She leaned forward. "But children grow, and we have grown very fast." She cut the transmission. "All ships," she said, "begin the attack, but remember your orders. We hit military targets only. Civilian hives are off limits. We are not like them. We never will be." The battle lasted 6 hours. Human ships died by the dozens. Ships died by the hundreds. The void around them became a graveyard of metal and fire. Project Sunrise was deployed, but not as the Council had feared. Instead of destroying the planet, ordered precise strikes on military bases, command centers, and the fortress of the endless hunger itself. "We could end them," her weapons officer said. "One shot and their entire species is gone." Yes, agreed. We could, and then we would be exactly what they said we were: animals, savages, monsters. She shook her head. We win this war by being better than them, not by being the same. Captain led the boarding party that entered the Overlord's fortress. He was 52 years old. His hair was gray. His body was covered in scars from a dozen battles. He should have been retired, sitting in a garden somewhere, watching the sky. Instead, he walked through corridors filled with bodies. His soldiers moved around him, silent and deadly. They had trained for this moment for months. The endless hunger waited in the center of its throne room. It was surrounded by its elite guards, the largest and most deadly warriors ever bred. Looked at them, then he looked at his soldiers. "Clear a path," he said. The battle was short and brutal. Human soldiers died. Guards fell. When it was over, only stood before the Overlord. He carried no gun, only a blade forged from the hull of a ship that had died at the Battle of. "You think you have won," the endless hunger said. Its voice was weak now, its body damaged by the orbital strikes. "You have destroyed my army. You have burned my world, but we will return. We always return. Sleep for 1,000 years, then wake again. Your species will be dust by then." "Maybe," said, "but I do not think so." He stepped closer. "You wanted to harvest us, to eat our children, to turn our worlds into food. Yes, you were meant to be prey." "We were never prey," raised his blade. "You should have studied us before you came. You would have learned something important." "What?" "That we are the species that survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. That we climbed out of caves and reached for stars. That we died and died and died, and still we got back up." The blade came down. "We are humanity, and we do not stay down." The war ended not with celebration, but with silence. Ships floated in the void. Soldiers sat in the ruins of enemy fortresses. Survivors looked at each other and wondered what came next. Ambassador signed the surrender accords in her wheelchair. The remaining leaders agreed to confine themselves to their home system. They would not leave for 1,000 years. They would not threaten other species. They would remember what happened when they tried. Counselor stood beside as she signed. "Your tears have stopped," observed. "Yes," the looked at its hands. "I learned something from your people. Tears are not weakness, but they are also not enough. Sometimes you must dry your eyes and act." And now I become the first human advocate, a who speaks for humans in the council, who reminds the galaxy what you did and why. Almost smiled. "That sounds like a boring job." "Perhaps, but it is necessary. Someone must tell your story. Someone must make sure the galaxy does not forget." On Earth, the survivors began to rebuild. Doctor returned to and opened a children's hospital. She treated colds and broken arms and kids who ate too much candy. Sometimes she woke at night from dreams of blood and screaming, but she always got up in the morning. Sergeant was offered a general's rank. She declined. She went back to logistics, moving supplies and counting boxes. It was quiet work, and she had had enough noise to last a lifetime. The hacker girl who had fooled with fake communications received a scholarship to the Academy of Interstellar Communication. She was 17 now. She had lost her entire family. She had helped save her entire species. She did not know what to do with either of those things. The teacher who had led civilian ships to safety returned to her classroom. Her students asked her about the war. She told them stories sometimes, but mostly she taught them about poetry and mathematics and the way light bends through water. And Captain, he retired to a small house on the coast of Korea. He planted a garden, though he had never gardened before. He tried to make pottery and failed badly. He adopted 3 war orphans who had no one else, and he taught them to fish in the cold morning waters. Some nights he dreamed of fire. He dreamed of friends who had died in his arms. He woke in cold sweat with his heart racing. But every morning he got up. He made breakfast for the children. He walked to the shore and watched the waves. That was what humans did. They got back up. 200 years later, historians would write about the human war. They would call it the moment the galaxy changed forever. Not because of the violence, for the galaxy had known violence before, but because of what came after. Humans did not conquer. They did not rule. They did not demand tribute or submission. They simply existed, stubbornly and loudly and beautifully, and the galaxy learned to exist with them. They stopped crying so often. They learned that standing up was sometimes better than weeping. Other species learned too. They learned that even small creatures could fight, that even weak ships could win, that the universe belonged to those who refused to surrender. And deep in the archives of every civilization, they kept one record, a simple message sent from a human ship in the first battle of the war. A young commander named had spoken it just before she ordered her fleet to attack. "We are not food, we are not prey, we are the storm that comes when you push too hard." The words had no power. They were just sounds arranged in a certain way. But they became a legend anyway, because legends are not about power. They are about hope. They are about ordinary people doing extraordinary things because giving up was never an option. The inscription on the memorial of the fallen in Seoul read, "They asked us to surrender." They did not understand that the word does not translate into our hearts. Millions of visitors came every year to read those words, humans and aliens alike. They stood in silence and thought about what they meant. And then they went back to their lives, a little different than before. Because that was the lesson humanity taught the galaxy. You do not need to be the strongest or the oldest. You do not need perfect weapons or ancient wisdom or endless resources. You just need to refuse to quit. You just need to get back up. One more time,